Happy almost July 4th to those of you in the US and to those everywhere else. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday, although I know in some places you're already pretty close to being done with your Monday. I have the day off from the clinic, so have been kind of doing a little bit of studying, but playing a lot. And Keith and I are headed out to ride bikes, and I can't wait to get down to the beach and see the water and just kind of enjoy the rest of our day. But I wanted to stop in before I went down there and say I have had a lot of questions lately about Hashimoto's, especially those that have just been diagnosed or who are they just believe they have it. And I will tell you that if you believe you have it, my guess is you probably do, because we know 90% of hypothyroid cases are due to Hashimoto's. And so if your thyroid is running slowly, there's a really, really good chance that you have Hashimoto's. But here's the question I get a lot. What do I do now? I've just been diagnosed. I don't really even understand what I'm hearing. This is all going over my head. What do I do with this? So I want to give you 3 tips, and these are going to not be the tips you think they're going to be, but they are some of the most crucial things that you can do in the very beginning of a Hashimoto's diagnosis, or that of any chronic illness, to be honest with you, because we get so overwhelmed so quickly with what is happening that we don't really know what to do with ourselves, and we end up in a worse spot than we need to be, number one, but could be later. So the first step that I want you to do right now is something we've been talking about on the page, and that's to breathe. I want you to take in a breath, hold it to the count of 8, and let it out slowly. I want you to do that 3 times. The breathing actually stops some of the fight or flight symptoms that we have, of that feeling like we're running. Our brain doesn't shut off. Our mind is racing. Our body is all ramped up, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. And we get ourselves all worked up because of this diagnosis, believing, especially if we've been on the internet reading it all, we are believing that there is no hope, and oh my God, my whole body's falling apart, and we don't know what to do with it. So the first thing I want you to do is take a deep breath, and then another, and then another. Because that will slow some of that racing in your head down. Now, the second thing I want you to do is I want you to get a notebook. It can be pretty, it can be, I don't care what it is. It can be toilet paper for all I care, although you're not really going to keep toilet paper. But the point being is something to write on. And I want you to do 2 things in this. I want this to become a journal, not necessarily journaling your thoughts and in the things that you're thinking about a journal, although I do have a lot of people that it becomes that. It did for me. Because when I sat down to write out everything, all of a sudden I started writing how I was feeling and what was happening and my thoughts. And that in itself helps, because the research shows that even just taking a pen to a piece of paper helps dump those thoughts out of your head, again, clearing and helping the stress response. But what I want you to do is write down questions that you might have, things that are racing through your head. What does this mean? What is Hashimoto's? Why is my doctor not looking at my antibodies? Why am I on thyroid medication but feel crappy? All of those questions put down on a piece of paper in a notebook, so that you can start to really look at what symptoms you have versus what you're reading on the internet. Because the problem is, a lot of times we get on the internet and we start finding all this stuff about Hashimoto's, and now we think we have all of those. Here's the thing. You may have a lot of symptoms, but only a couple are really because of the Hashimoto's. The other things could be contributing factors to the Hashimoto's. They could be coexisting conditions with the Hashimoto's. But a lot of them can be the stress of, number one, the Hashimoto's on your body, but also the racing brain and the stress. Now, I know I have told you before, because, well, let's go on to number 3, and then I'll say what I was just going to say. The number 3 major thing to do, so we've got, you're going to breathe. Do it again, breathe. You're going to get a journal, and you're going to start to write down symptoms, questions, how you're feeling. And number 3 is you're going to try to reduce stress in every way possible. And I know that sounds crazy. We live in a crazy world. We live with crazy schedules. We have too much to do, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the mind starts racing again. Reducing stress is one of the biggest things we can do for Hashimoto's, because the two areas that we need to deal with Hashimoto's is your gut and your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are your stress center. So I'm going to use this analogy. Some of you have heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. You're walking through the woods and a bear jumps out at you. What do? Turn around and say, "Hi, bear"? No, we start running. The first bit is adrenaline. After that, where we continue running, it turns into the stress response of what we call fight or flight. And it's basically you running from a bear that is chasing you, or at least what you believe is chasing you. And your body does not differentiate that stress of running from a bear, whether it's coming from the bear running or whether it's coming because you have an immune system that's out of whack, or you have nutrients that are not there, or your gut isn't working well. It's all stress, and so we keep running. That is cortisol. And that is the stress hormone that keeps us running and keeps us protected. Believe it or not, cortisol is not a bad thing. We have to have it. It helps us get up in the morning and get moving, and it protects us, or believes it's protecting us. I'll spit it out yet, as we run from that bear. The problem is the bear died 20 days ago and we're still running from it, because we've gotten into this stress mode. And so there are things that we really need to look at doing to reduce that stress in order to calm the Hashimoto flare down. When you have a chronic illness, you can almost bank that if you get under stress, that you are going to feel worse. How many of you have done that? I mean, God, I know I do it all the time. If I'm not careful, if I'm not meditating, if I'm not journaling in the morning, and I'm not taking time to do things like my sewing stuff that I showed you the picture earlier about, I will end up in a place where my gut feels like it's just on fire. I can't sleep. I have headaches. And now I'm drinking coffee all the time, which is making worse headaches. We have to stop running from that proverbial bear. We have to slow down, and we have to quiet the craziness. Now you can do that with the adaptogenic herbs that I've talked about, using ashwagandha, gotu kola, rhodiola, those type of things. But we also don't want to just take pills for it. We need to find a way to actually cope while we are working to heal ourselves and put this Hashimoto's into remission. Because Hashimoto's can be where it is not forever. Yes, you're always going to have it. Autoimmune disease is not something you cure, but you can put it into remission, and you can learn how your body reacts, and you can have a wonderful, thriving, positive life that feels right to you. So we need to really look at reducing stress. So my big way, as you all have heard me say a lot of times, is meditation. Meditation in the morning keeps me sane, keeps me not wanting to kill Keith, which he'll be first to tell you that when I don't have meditation for days on end, he can tell, because I will start to get worked up over every little thing. And I'm already a type A personality, so you don't really want to see that. And so meditation, even if it's only for 2 minutes a day, can make a huge difference. That can be meditation sitting out and watching the sunrise. It can be sitting with your coffee out on the porch. It can be in a gardening situation. It doesn't just have to be the Om meditation. We can do a lot of meditative practices without having to do what we think of as meditation. Now, I like the ones that are the Om type meditation. I pick up other pieces during that. But meditation is a great way, and studies have shown that it is completely effective in reducing stress. Look at doing things like yoga, because yoga connects our mind and our body. It works really well in helping those with chronic illness put their illness in a perspective that they can deal with it, number one, but also frees their body of some of the emotional attachment that happens with chronic illness. Now, I told you 3 things. So I said that we're going to first breathe, we're going to get a journal, and we're going to do reduce stress. But I want to give you one more task. And that is to really, really limit how much research you're doing on the internet. Now, I'm not telling you not to look things up. Number one, I know I could tell you that and you're still going to do it anyway because I do it. But what I'm going to tell you is to limit how much of it you're doing. Because what can happen, and I don't know if you have ever felt like this. I get looking on a subject to the point I feel like my brain is going to explode, and I am stressed out, and I'm clear down in a rabbit hole I didn't start in, and I can feel my heart starting to beat really fast, and I'm breathing really shallow. It's because we've overloaded. When we look at autoimmune diseases, one of the things we have to do is reduce some of the stimulation, because that constant stimulus is going to really induce, again, the stress response. So my suggestion is, when you're looking at dealing with Hashimoto's and you want to learn about it, is to, number one, make sure that who you're following is somebody who knows what they're talking about. And number two, limit how much exposure. I know when I first was looking at Hashimoto's, and my labs came back with it, that I was in a lot of Hashimoto's groups on Facebook. And it's not that they don't serve a purpose, and that they are there for people who are trying to understand, and they can be, good resources to a certain degree. But I would get to the point that I was so stressed out after reading everybody's post for about 10 minutes. I had to finally unfollow all of those groups because I couldn't handle it. I just could not handle the amount of feelings that were pouring out of people. And people need to express these feelings. I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be said, but when you are trying to read this and you have your own feelings and now you're absorbing everybody else's, it's going to send your adrenals into this tailspin, and you're going to be running from another bear or a saber-toothed tiger or whatever else. And so we need to really start to eliminate those stressors that happen. And that's one of the ones I see that are really big, because I'll have people come in with a laundry list into the clinic of all the things they're scared of. I'm like, whoa, let's step back. Let's take a breath, and let's see what is your trigger versus everybody else's. So those are my first 3 to 4 steps in working with Hashimoto's. Obviously, we need to talk about diet. Obviously, we need to talk about gut. Obviously, we need to find your triggers. That type of thing has to happen as you work down your journey to healing. But first, take some time to just be in the moment, and do that every morning for just a little while, and it'll make a huge difference for you. All right, I'm going to go. Keith and I are going to ride bikes and go down and see the beach, and I will be back. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the evening and 4th of July if I don't see you tomorrow. Have a great one.